Okay, why am I late? 'Cause I've been watching the Berlin Marathon on Twitter, as you do. And it's getting very exciting. I don't know if anyone's watching it, but it looks like Kipchoge is about to get a new world record if he continues the pace he is. I think they're at 40k or something, and he's ahead at the moment. So, but hey, I've decided to sacrifice my enjoy. Hi, Ian. You all right? So you're not watching the Berlin Marathon either. I decided to sacrifice my enjoyment of the Berlin Marathon because I said I was going to do this, and I want to try and keep the time regular. So, hi, Mike. You're right. You're not watching the Berlin Marathon either. Can people kind of type what's happening in the Berlin Marathon just so I can read it when it comes up? That'd be great, because that's what I'm thinking of at the moment. But anyway, so if you joined us now, then thanks for tuning in. If not, remember you can always watch this recording later on in the comfort of your own schedule. So it's the third of three just informal chats we're going to do from the clinic here at Studio 57. Should we have another little look at where I am Sunday morning? This is where all the action starts about 45 minutes from Studio 57 in Hove, where I work on Sundays, because like I say, where the people need me, I will be. That's my motto and the way I live. Anyway, so what am I going to talk about today? Well, I put some questions out there on various social media, on Instagram and that, to see what people would like to hear me ramble on about. And the main one that stood out was from Mr. Jack Chu, the chiseled mank from Physio Matters podcast. And he asked me to articulate my views on to what extent would I try and change a runner's gait who comes in for gait analysis, but he's not in any pain, and he just wants to get that PB, or he just wants to become a better runner. So in other words, how much can I influence performance by making tweaks to a runner's running form? Pretty interesting topic. A tricky one, because as always, one of the things that I try and do, and it's kind of the niche of people that I sit in, is very much, have we got any evidence for it? Because as soon as you leave evidence-based practice, you open up the doors to all sorts of pseudoscience and anecdotal evidence, and some things which may be worth trying, but you've got to realise there's no proof they're going to work, and you mustn't chase them. You've got to have a pyramid of evidence-based stuff first of all, and then if that's all covered, then work your way up a little bit. If you're really stuck and there's not a good evidence-based practice to follow, then maybe start trying the other stuff. But as hopefully we'll see through these broadcasts, a lot of people, when it comes to running injury and performance, will start with non-evidence-based practice at the top of the pyramid, which I'm not saying you should totally ignore. Well, some of it maybe, but they'll go straight, for example, to acupuncture because their Achilles hurts, rather than starting off with more evidence-based heavy loading, abstaining maybe from stretching if it's an insertional Achilles problem, because unfortunately, runners will always go for the quick fix, and also they'll go for the most attractive option. And that comes into gait analysis as well, because runners will look at the pictures, they'll look at the blurb, and the more scientific it looks, the more flashy lights, the more theatre, then the more likely they are to go and spend their money. In fact, Ian Griffiths, who's watching now, once accused me of theatre. Oh my God, I look like Adam Meekins when I frown. Anyway, yeah, Ian Griffiths once asked about body marking. If you're not following Ian, and watch him, Sports Pod, him and Craig Payne have got some fantastic information on looking at the foot end of running. Too much emphasis is placed on from the hips down. Obviously, it can work the other way up, from foot upwards, and Ian Griffiths and Craig Payne are my go-to people for looking at when indeed you might miss that foot up approach, or indeed looking at everything but not forgetting about the foot. Anyway, yeah, so Ian Griffiths once asked me, why do you do body marking, Matt? What's the idea of felt tipping people before gait analysis? And I obviously defended it, being loyal to my company and Stride UK. But in actual fact, I mean, at the time, now we don't use body marking. Now we've got depth sensing cameras, which allow us to get a digital imprint of the person without having to do any body marking, which is fantastic. But at the time, we were conscious that body marking, potentially, as long as you didn't go down any red herring roads, was better than just using the naked eye in some cases. It made it a little bit easier for angles and things to stand out when you stand back and look globally. But also, let's not lie, the body marking was part of, I don't like the word theatre, but it was part of the same way as you wipe down a couch and put on a clean bit of paper before you bring someone into the clinic. Okay, it's part of the package which makes runners feel comfortable, which opens up their ears, which then allows you to look at the individual rather than just focusing on their ankle, which is hurting. So we don't use body marking anymore, but definitely it's marketing, isn't it? Not in a bad way. It's just marketing in the sense of, there you go, you forgot about that. Yeah, well, I didn't forget about it, and I will find you. Anyway, so yeah, it's not theatre. It's just, why am I talking about this? Oh, because you have to be aware that runners will migrate towards the flashiest, most fancy equipment. And as I said in the first broadcast we did, how fancy and technical and the data your equipment produces with gait analysis means absolutely nothing if you're making bad interpretations, if you're not following the evidence. Okay, and I'm even more aware of that now using motion metrics, because it's a fantastic bit of kit, and it's the bit of kit which I trained people in Kenya recently, and I'm very confident in it, and I'm happy to do gait workshops anywhere using the kit. But I'm just as quick, if not the first thing I'll say is this bit of kit is useless unless... Martin, how you doing? Talking of Kenya, here's one of the lovely gentlemen and physios I met in Kenya during my time there. Physio, Kenyan Physio, so check him out. Check him out just to be a better person. That's what I like to say about Martin. Hi Martin, hope you're well. But anyway, yeah, your flashy gait analysis kit is useless unless you know how to interpret it. So there was my 10-minute introduction of what we're talking about today. So yes, Jack Chew's question was, Matt, when do you change someone's form if it's not actually, they're not in pain or anything? That was my Manc accent. So yeah, great question. When people come to see us and they're not in pain and they just want to run faster or run longer for in a quicker period of time, there's obviously all sorts of temptations to give them something revolutionary, give them something new. You've got this fantastic kit, and the last thing you want to do is actually say, you know what, mate, it's all looking pretty good, your running form's fine, but sometimes that's going to be the case. One, because maybe you haven't got any evidence to suggest otherwise. Pass my regards to the Chew. I will do, my friend Martin, I will do. Yeah, sometimes because you haven't got evidence to suggest otherwise, and sometimes, more importantly, is because there's something more evidence-based which is holding back their performance. Okay, so again, if you haven't checked out the first broadcast I did on gait analysis, then maybe go back and have a little look. But again, using that pyramid idea, I can't see above the comments now, doing the pyramid idea, we know that, and definitely with injury, 60-70% of injuries are because of inappropriate training, and then we know to a certain extent, better than any other application, that strength training can hold people back. The whole philosophy and idea behind the elastic recoil exchange and all that, if you haven't got the strength in those springs, then that's going to hold you back. Okay, so strength is very important. And also we know that there's a lot of myths out there which runners of all levels go chasing in seeking improvements of performance, and particularly in getting rid of injury or reducing injury risk, which we can either say probably not very likely, or you know what, it's just you're running up I can't think of the expression, you're just chasing, you're going down a rabbit hole. It's just there's no evidence for it. I know it's expressed in massive red letters all over the websites, but you haven't got to run at 180 steps per minute, mate. I'm sorry, it just doesn't make sense, and maybe your performance is being held back by that. So do we tweak a runner's form when they come in and they're not suffering from pain? Number one rule, go through the more evidence-based stuff first of all. Don't skip it. Go through their case history. The fact that the runner has come through the door to see you probably means there's something up. Okay, unless they've won a voucher or a friend's just said, "Oh, go and check them out." But even when a friend says, "Go check them out," there's probably something in their back of their mind, which is, even if they're not injured, that they feel they're being held back. I've had people come from the States who have come all the way here, and I've checked in the emails, like in an educated, professional way, like saying, "Why the hell are you coming all the way from Las Vegas to Hove? Okay, what is it that you're hoping to get here that you're not getting in the States with all the information you've got there?" And again, because a certain amount of the attraction is, they must know other stuff over the pond. It works both ways. We think America's so far advanced with their technology, but they think we are as well. So again, I have to make sure before someone travels that far. I mean, that was quite an extreme example, but even coming from the north, from Nottingham or somewhere even higher, then I want to make sure that the reasons why they're coming down. So anyway, they come through the door. The fact they've come to see you and they're willing to spend money is that something's up. Okay, and maybe it's the belief that their running form is not working, is not right. Maybe it's that belief, which, hi Francis O'Massage. Is that your surname? That's a fantastic career you're in if that's your name, Francis O'Massage. Anyway, yeah, maybe the belief that their running form is not right is what's actually holding them back. Okay, so that's an important thing to consider in the case history and the consultation and that. So let's imagine that a runner, you've covered their case history, you've covered their beliefs. They're not purposely trying to do something which might not be true or might not be helping them. What about if all that's covered and then you get them on the treadmill? What is it that you might see which you might decide, you know what, let's try tweaking this. Let's have a play around with these bits of the puzzle and see how it goes. Well, we've covered it before on, hi Chris, right. We've covered it before on the other, or on various podcasts and stuff. But there's kind of 4 or 5 hot areas where we know we can tweak. Areas which, although there's no one perfect running style, we know that there's similarities between the best forms out there. So we're talking now about your cadence. We're talking about now about how close the foot is landing to the body, i.e. are they overstriding? We could link it into the amount of movement in the pelvis, either laterally or particularly laterally. Maybe there's less evidence anterior and posterior, but we could look at that. Remember, this is for a runner who isn't in pain whatsoever. We could look at crossover. Tricky again, because for every bit of evidence which links crossover gait to maybe, I don't know, iliotibial band syndrome or tibial stress syndrome, there's another bit of research which shows there's not a link. With performance, the evidence is almost never going to be there because it's very difficult to get quality research for performance because there's so many other factors. You can't rule out nutritional change, recovery change. You can try and make some factors act the same, but you can never pinpoint it and narrow it down to it must be this that's causing the benefit. So it does turn into a little bit of a guessing game. And I think that's probably one of the healthiest things to get across to your runner is help them realize that it's not black and white. That if you're suggesting that their cadence is particularly low for the speed that they're running at, notice I said for the speed they're running at, maybe that low cadence is creating a high vertical oscillation or something which you think may be wasting energy and reducing their efficiency. If the kind of science you've got adds up, then let them know we should try this. Okay, not if they've got like a important race coming up in the next few weeks, because we know it's going to take at least 4 to 6 weeks for habit to change, and that's what you're playing with. But if they're in a period of their training where it is after races or in a kind of a progressive season or cycle where they are kind of tweaking stuff and they've got that luxury to be able to change things, then yeah, give them some ideas to play around with and try. I'm not a massive fan of that expression, if it ain't broken then don't try and fix it. I think it's a little bit kind of polar, and the fact the person's come through the door means they're looking for some help. Don't jump straight to trying to, the word fix is wrong, but don't jump straight to trying to modify the biomechanics. Make sure you look at the stuff at the bottom of the pyramid first of all. But I think tweaking a runner's form when you've got particular things that they're doing which have been linked to more or less successful running forms, I think that's perfectly healthy at the right time of year, and it's something where you might really help them by either reducing their cadence, trying to or increase their cadence, maybe doing some gait retraining to increase their width, their step or something, maybe trying to get them to run taller or reduce the amount of flexion in the knee. There's plenty of variables we can play around with, but it is a bit of a game, and you just let your runner know that we're going to try this. We're going to try and keep all other factors the same, because otherwise, how do we know that this made the difference? And we'll get back together and see how it's going. I think that's a healthy thing to do. Right, where are we? What time is it? Has the Berlin Marathon finished yet? Is anyone watching it? Can it have finished? No, it must be in nearly the end. Is anyone watching the Berlin Marathon? Anyone let me know what's going on? Because I need my phone. Okay. Well, it's 10:17. Hi, Brad. How you going, Brad? Nice to see you. Wow, people are actually joining today. This is incredible. Well, I'm rounding it out to an end because I'm really keen to see what's going on at the Berlin Marathon. But anyway, so to round things up, gait analysis. How much do you? This was Jack Chew's question. How much do you tweak someone's running form if they're not in any pain and they've literally just come in because they want a performance enhancement of some form? In a nutshell, before you do any of that, make sure that the more evidence-based parts of the pyramid are covered, as in their training consistency, as in their strength training, as in their nutrition, their recovery, as in false beliefs, which could be holding them back or making them chase false beliefs. You've got to cover all of that. And that's what we said in the first broadcast about gait analysis. Is not just about the treadmill. Okay, definitely not. It's about the 3 triangles of taking a case history and having the conversation that comes from that. It's about the physical assessment, so you know if there's potential strength deficits or maybe mobility deficits, although personally, again, my bias is I believe that too much emphasis is put on mobility deficits. It's about challenging any misconceptions or miseducation they've got. And then once you've got that major pieces of the puzzle, then put them on the treadmill and only start changing things once that's covered. And that's it. So sorry if you just joined me, Brad. It depends. I have clinic today. I've got somebody in like 20 minutes. So it all depends on the train coming in. But I'll try and do these if they're popular. It's great to see a few people actually still watching. But I'll try and do these like around 9:15, 9:30, 9:45. But it depends on a lot of factors because I've got 2 kids. So it depends a lot on that. So I'm going to sign off now and hopefully let you watch what I've talked about. As always, feel free to leave comments. I want this to be educative for everybody, including myself, particularly when we got people like Brad Neal, who, if you're not following, then you have to follow. He's, again, a go-to guy for the biomechanics of running, especially knee-orientated. You've got, like I said, Ian Griffiths, who's a go-to guy for the podiatry side of things in running, which is either ignore too much of the time or is full of myths and conceptions, as Ian introduces all of us to at some point in our career. Please leave notes if there's anything you don't agree with or stuff which you think it might be interesting for us to talk about. I don't know whether runners are going to watch this or therapists. We'll see as it goes by. It's only number 3 of 3. Anyway, I've got to get ready and see how Kipchoge is doing. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next Sunday around 9:30. I'm out.